The moment I turned the heavy key and heard the clank of the lock snapping shut on my pool gate, the air changed. Mrs. Cartwriter, HOA president, and full-time nosy neighbor stood 10 feet away, mouth wide open, like I'd just set fire to the neighborhood playground. Her little dog, Biscuit, barked like it understood how angry she was. Behind her, the rest of the HOA board stood frozen, clutching their clipboards and half-drunk iced lattes like confused mannequins. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. I picked up the bright yellow, "Private property, no trespassing" sign I just zip-tied to the pool fence and gave it one last hug. Mrs. Cartwright finally snapped out of it. "You can't do that," she screamed. "This pool belongs to the community." "No," I said, staring her dead in the eye. "It belongs to me, and you just fined me for using it." Then I stepped back and chained the second gate shut. She lunged forward, like she was going to tear it down with her bare hands, but I was already walking back toward my house. My phone buzzed with another incoming message from the HOA board. I didn't look. I already knew what it said. But none of them knew what had really been going on. Not yet. And by the time they found out, it would be way too late. 2 weeks earlier, I had just finished laying out fresh towels on the poolside chairs when the first one showed up. A little folded piece of paper stuck under my windshield wiper. A citation. Violation of HOA community pool access guidelines. Personal use outside designated hours. 50 fine. I blinked. Community pool? There was only one pool on our street, and it was the one in my backyard. At first, I laughed. I thought it was some kind of joke. But when I walked inside and checked my HOA portal online, it was real. My name was listed. The fine was active. And there was even a note in the violation log. Observed using private pool without prior reservation per updated guidelines. Updated guidelines? I didn't get any email. No letter. Nothing. Still, thinking it had to be a mistake, I decided to drop by the HOA office the next morning. That was my first mistake. The office was inside an old community center 2 blocks down, and it smelled like paper and air freshener pretending to be lemons. Mrs. Cartwright sat behind the desk like a queen on a throne. "Ah, Mr. Bennett," she said, smiling without her eyes. "Hear about your fine, I presume." "Yeah," I said. "The one for using my own pool?" Her smile didn't budge. "Oh, it's not your pool anymore." My eyebrows shot up. "I'm sorry, what?" She slid a paper across the desk. "New guidelines passed last month. Your backyard pool has officially been designated as a community amenity due to its size, access point, and visibility from the walking trail." I stared at the document. It looked official. It had stamps and signatures, but the names, all 3 signatures, were from the HOA board members themselves. "You just decided that my private pool is now public?" She tilted her head. "You agreed to HOA terms when you bought your house. Section 9B shared neighborhood amenities may be subject to board reassignment under special circumstances. It's all legal." I shook my head. "You're insane." She leaned forward, voice sweet like syrup. "Then don't use the pool, dear. Problem solved." I left before I broke something. Over the next week, things got worse. Kids I didn't know started showing up in my yard. Their parents waved at me from the sidewalk like I was a lifeguard on duty. Teenagers brought their friends, threw cans in my bushes, played loud music, and splashed water all over my patio. Every time I asked them to leave, they told me the HOA said it was fine. Every time I emailed the HOA, I got nothing but automated replies. And every time I tried to reclaim my space, I got more fines. Using pool without reservation, 50. Denying access to HOA-approved visitors, 75. Unauthorized signage requesting privacy, 30. By the end of the week, they said I owed them 655. That's when I snapped. The night before everything changed, I stayed up late, scrolling through our HOA bylaws. And that's when I found it. A loophole. One single sentence buried in a paragraph no one ever reads. Shared amenities assigned by board authority may be reclaimed by owner if said property is actively secured and no longer maintained for community use. That was it. That was my way out. I printed the clause, made 5 copies, and got to work. By morning, I had a new sign posted. Pool closed for maintenance. Private property. Do not enter. I drained a quarter of the water to make it look unsafe. I locked both gates with thick padlocks. I rolled out orange construction netting and blocked the walkway from the trail. I posted, private, trespassers will be prosecuted. Signs all around the fence. Then I filmed myself doing it. Every padlock, every sign. I uploaded it to the neighborhood Facebook group with one line. Oh, find me for using my own pool. So I locked it. Good luck getting in. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Mrs. Cartwright called 5 times. Another board member threatened to sue. One neighbor accused me of endangering the summer fun of neighborhood children. But none of that mattered. The locks were on. The water was draining. The moment Mrs. Cartwright crossed the invisible line past my fence, every alarm I installed screamed to life. B. Warning. Private property. Trespassers will be recorded and prosecuted. B. She flinched like she'd been shot. The board member with the clipboard dropped it. The guy with the bolt cutters actually jumped back into the bushes. But I didn't flinch. I just stood on my porch holding a cup of coffee like this was the morning show I'd been waiting for. The new security system installed just 12 hours. AGA worked better than I'd hoped. Flashing red lights, a blaring siren, and a motion-activated speaker that shouted legal threats loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. It was dramatic. It was loud. It was perfect. You're done, Bennett, Mrs. Cartwright screamed over the noise. We own this pool now. Nope, I said, pointing to the bright green sticker above the gate. Secured. Personal property. HOA exemption clause. 14.9b in effect. She squinted at it. Her jaw dropped. She knew exactly what it meant and she hated it. They backed off eventually, retreating like cartoon villains caught in a trap. But as they walked away, Mrs. Cartwright shouted over her shoulder, "This isn't over. You'll wish you never touched that lock." She wasn't bluffing. Earlier that day, 9 hours before the standoff, after draining part of the pool and posting the signs, I'd made 3 important stops. City zoning office, to file a complaint about HOA overreach. Local sheriff's department, to clarify trespassing laws and get on-record confirmation that locking my own pool was legal. Best Buy, where I dropped $729 on a full security system with sirens, motion sensors, and cloud recording. I wasn't taking chances. The moment I got back, I mounted the cameras on all 4 corners of my backyard. The motion detector was set to ultra-sensitive. I even dug up the old sprinkler control box and rerouted it, just in case, because I knew something was coming. And I was right. That night, after the failed bolt cutter mission, things went quiet. Too quiet. For 2 whole days, no one came near my pool. No teenagers, no board members, not even Biscuit the dog. Then, on day 3, the real sabotage began. High moment. The sabotage begins. It started with the dead fish. I woke up to the smell before I saw them. 3 big, rotting fish floating in the shallow end of my half-drained pool. Someone had thrown them over the fence. My stomach turned. Not just because of the smell, but because of the message. This wasn't random. It was intimidation. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Someone had timed it between motion cycles. I cleaned the mess, poured in chemicals, and turned on the pool jets to circulate the water. But then came the next move. The next day, I found shattered glass along the edge of my patio, broken beer bottles, jagged pieces on every chair cushion and under my grill. That night, someone graffitied my fence in red spray paint. Selfish loser. Give back the pool. I reported everything to the police, filed a report, and handed over camera footage. They were sympathetic, but honest. Unless we catch them in the act, not much we can do, the officer said. But keep those cameras rolling. I nodded. Because the game wasn't over, it was just getting started. Low moment. My breaking point. 2 more days passed. My yard was quiet, but I felt like I was being watched. Neighbors stopped waving. Some even glared. A few whispered as I walked by. The kids who used to ride bikes past my house now crossed the street to avoid it. I was being turned into the villain, and I knew who was behind it. Mrs. Cartwright wasn't just angry. She was smart. She was turning the whole neighborhood against me. I almost gave up. I even thought about just unlocking the gate and letting them have it. I was tired, exhausted, lonely. But then I got an anonymous letter in my mailbox. No return address, no handwriting, just typed words on a single sheet of paper. We saw what they did. Don't give up. You're not the only one they've hurt. Inside was a photo, a picture of another homie on the other side of the neighborhood with a fenced-in garden and a matching private property HOA exemption sign. I stared at it. Someone else had fought them before. Someone had won, and I wasn't alone. High moment. I go public. The next morning, I made a decision. I gathered all my photos. The fines, the videos, the fish, the broken glass, the graffiti. I put them into a video, narrated what had happened, and titled it, "Oh, tried to steal my pool. Here's what I did." I uploaded it to YouTube, posted it in the neighborhood group, and emailed it to every board member. Within 6 hours, the video had 30 views. Within 12, it had 12. And by that evening, the local news had reached out. "Is this the house with the pool incident?" the reporter asked. "We'd like to do a story." I smiled. "You bet it is." The black SUV didn't move for over an hour. From behind my curtain, I watched Mrs. Cartwright gesture wildly while the man in the suit just nodded calmly. He never raised his voice. He didn't even seem angry. That scared me more than if he'd been shouting. Finally, they both stepped out. Mrs. Cartwright looked smug. The man looked like he owned the place. He walked right up to my door and knocked. Not hard, just 3 polite taps. Tap, tap, tap. When I opened it, he offered a business card. Marshall D. Crane, HOA legal consultant, property arbitration specialist. "Mr. Bennett," he said smoothly, "I've been asked to help resolve your situation." I didn't shake his hand. "I already resolved it," I said. "The pool's locked. Case closed." He smiled like I was a child who didn't know how the world worked. "Not quite. May we come in?" "No," I said flatly. Mrs. Cartwright pushed past him like I hadn't spoken. "This is your last chance to cooperate." "You're trespassing," I replied, holding up my phone and recording. Mr. Crane held up a folder. "Actually, I'm here under HOA, Article 12, G-Board authority during community disputes. I'm allowed to deliver an emergency arbitration notice." He handed me a thick stack of papers. I read the first line. "Notice of temporary community control over shared residential amenities pending arbitration." I flipped through the packet. Legal jargon, HOA codes, citations. But one page stood out. A date and time. Tomorrow, 10:00 a.m. Mandatory arbitration meeting. Location, HOA office. Refusal to attend will be taken as admission of violation, Crane added. Then he smiled again. Good day, Mr. Bennett. They left like they'd already won. The night before the meeting, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Instead, I spent the night digging deeper. I called the homeowner from the mystery letter, the one who had the garden and matching exemption sign. Her name was Carmen Rivera. A widow in her 60s who'd once had a koi pond the HOA tried to turn into a Zen meditation zone. They told me it was for the good of the neighborhood, she said bitterly. I fought them, spent months researching their own rules, found every inconsistency. They hate being challenged. She agreed to meet me at the HOA office in the morning, said she had documents I'd want to bring. By sunrise, I had a folder of my own photos, emails, copies of bylaws, even receipts. And I wasn't going alone. The arbitration meeting. The room was colder than it should have been. Mrs. Cartwright sat at one end of the table, flanked by two board members both glaring at me like I'd keyed their cars. Mr. Crane sat in the middle like a judge in a courtroom. Mr. Bennett, he began, you've been fined for denying access to a community amenity. We're here to determine if your pool qualifies under HOA jurisdiction. He tapped his pen. You may present your case. I stood up. My palms were sweaty, but my voice was steady. My pool is private property, I began, built and paid for by me. It sits entirely within my backyard, which is fenced and locked. I have the title, the receipts, the property lines. I handed him a packet. Then I pulled out the real kicker. And according to clause 14.9b, which I followed exactly, I've secured the pool, posted private signage, and ceased all community maintenance, which gives me the legal right to reclaim the space. I pointed at Carmen Rivera, who had just stepped into the room with a cane and a fire in her eyes. And I'm not the first one to do it. She dropped a folder on the table with a thud. Inside were emails from years ago proving the board had done this before, and lost. Mrs. Cartwright's face turned white. But Mr. Crane just smiled. Well argued, he said calmly, but we're not done. High moment, the twist. Mr. Crane stood and pulled a photo from his briefcase. Aerial drone footage of my yard. You see, Mr. Bennett, he said, this footage shows that the walking trail behind your house provides visual and auditory access to your pool. Under Section 8A, this could be considered implied shared recreational space, especially if no barriers exist to reduce sound or visibility. My blood froze. It was true. There was no privacy wall on the back fence, just metal bars and some bushes. That's when Mrs. Cartwright spoke, voice dripping with victory. You made it a spectacle, Mr. Bennett. With your YouTube video, your alarms, your signs. You invited public attention. You can't claim privacy after that. I opened my mouth to respond, but Crane held up a hand. Enough. I'll render my decision in 48 hours. Then he packed up and walked out like a villain leaving a bomb behind. Low moment. All seems lost. Back at home, I stood by the pool. It looked quiet, empty, like it was waiting for the verdict, too. The motion lights flickered on. A breeze stirred the tarp. My phone buzzed with more angry comments from neighbors online. The neighborhood was splitsome, calling me a hero. Others saying, I ruined summer. For the first time, I wondered if I'd gone too far. What if they took it? What if the law was on their side? I felt sick. But then, Carmen called. I've been thinking, she said. If they're using the drone footage against you, maybe it's time to show what else is visible from the trail. I blinked. What do you mean? Meet me tomorrow morning, she said. The binoculars nearly slipped from my hands. From behind the trail's bushes, I had a crystal clear view of board member Ken Haverford's backyard, the same man who voted yes on every fine I'd received. His enormous hot tub was surrounded by tiki torches, half-empty wine bottles, and most importantly, neighbors, not in his household. 4 of them, laughing, drinking, and definitely not following any HOA rules. Carmen grinned like a cat who'd found a canary. See what I mean? I took a deep breath and hit record on my phone, zoomed in, got everything. Even caught Ken himself clinking glasses with Mrs. Cartwright in video. I thought she didn't believe in backyard leisure, I muttered. Carmen smirked. She doesn't believe you should have it. We stayed another 10 minutes, filming in silence. Then I went home, edited the footage, added some on-screen captions and timestamps, and posted it to my YouTube channel under the title, "Oh, caught breaking their own rules. You won't believe this hypocrisy." Within an hour, it was spreading like wildfire. High moment. The backlash begins. By nightfall, the video had 47 zero views. By morning, over 250, 0 comments poured in. This OA is a scam. I live in a neighborhood just like this. We need more people like you. Sue them, seriously. That video footage is gold. But it wasn't just strangers. My neighbors started talking. A few came up to me while I was checking the mail. "Hey man," said one dad I barely knew. "I didn't agree with what you were doing before, but now I get it." Even the quiet old couple on the corner waved at me like I was a war hero returning from battle. But not everyone was happy. Low moment. The threat. That night, my doorbell rang just past 11 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw no one. Just a blank piece of paper taped to the door. It read, "Remove that video or face legal consequences. This is your final warning. HOA." No name, no signature, just red Sharpie. I stared at it for a long time. Then I shut the door and scanned it into my laptop for evidence. Because threats only meant one thing. They were scared. The unexpected ally. The next day, Carmen showed up at my door again, this time with a folder full of previous settlements and complaints against the HOA. "You're not the first one they've tried to scare," she said, "but you might be the first one with an audience." We went through the documents together. There were 4 separate homeowners who had taken legal action in the Postand 1, quietly. But each time, they'd sign non-disclosure agreements. "They pay people off," I said. She nodded. "And bury the truth." But not this time. That's when my phone dinged. Email from Mr. Crane. "Mr. Bennett, in light of new public developments, the HOA is requesting an emergency closed-door meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Attendance mandatory. Marshall D. Crane." I turned the screen toward Carmen. Her eyes lit up. "Good," she said. "They're cornered." High moment. The power shift. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into the HOA office. The atmosphere was completely different. No smug looks. No cold glares. Mrs. Cartwright sat with her arms crossed, glaring daggers at the floor. Ken Haverford wouldn't meet my eyes. Mr. Crane stood at the head of the table, hands clasped like a disappointed principal. "Mr. Bennett," he said, "your video has caused significant reputational damage to the HOA." I didn't flinch. He cleared his throat. "In light of this, the board is willing to dismiss